Hello again. Thought you seen the last of me. No, you haven't. Anyway, okay. As per the request of a lovely subscriber from Australia, I will be sharing my journey to finding happiness and to striving for purpose from in my life and from my perspective. Okay. For what felt like an eternity, all I could ever seem to remember was this distinct feeling of desolateness, coupled with a sense of unworthiness and despair due to a rather troublesome upbringing in my formative years. To make matters worse was the fact that I quite literally never knew what it looked like to stand up for myself, establish firm boundaries with others, and retain a strong sense of self and an inner conviction. I felt like a misfit, doomed to a life of depravity, even though that's a bit of some might say an exaggeration or a bit of a stretch. That's how I felt, and there's no point in denying my feelings, especially when I've been doing it for so long. Okay, lacking a solid identity in more ways than one ended up causing me more harm than it did any good. I was made to feel small, lesser than, weaker, and even at times inadequate. It seemed like at the time there was nothing that I could do to escape this terrible fate. Now, interestingly enough, I was never an outcast or social pariah per se. I seemed to get along just fine with others, but only on a surface level. Yeah. I always felt as though I was skirting along the edges. I considered myself to be what people would refer to as a popular loner, I guess. The reasoning for this, I believe, was due to my natural inclination to blend in or morph into my surrounding environment and the people therein as some sort of warped survival mechanism. I never understood other people's approach to to situations or to just in general in connecting with others on an interpersonal level as being, I'm not sure. It's like most people that I know have a really strong ego and sense of self, a really defined sense of self, and that is the way that they navigate the world through conveying this self that they've created and that they consider themselves to be. Now, I never felt like that. As I've said before, I was always more of a shape-shifting chameleon. And I added on here, after all, the more adaptable the species, the higher their chances of survival become, right? But as I said before, being a shape-shifting chameleon and consistently catering to the wants and needs of others just wasn't enough, because what I needed was God in my life. Tragedy aside, my path to happiness was a rather tumultuous one. It was a path that required me to walk alone and be mostly in solitude. It all started when I discovered spirituality and the practice of mindful meditation. At first, it just helped to quell my restlessness and temper my rampant anxiety. But as I delved deeper, with the more research I did and books I gathered, it provided me with this knowledge that in turn aided me in rediscovering and reclaiming the the fragments of my soul that I thought had been lost to me for good. Okay, and to add on to this, staying rooted in the present moment to me, it was always more of a yielding, And to tap into that and to harness it is something that one can only find when you're in communionship with God. Some say that quieting your mind and freeing it from any and all ruminating thoughts can help in the process. However, meditation did help me. I'm not going to lie, it really did, especially in regards to my anxiety that I felt before in the past. But it did not resolve the yearning, that deep yearning that I felt within myself. And I think this is because, the path is not so cut and dry for us all. It's convoluted. And a lot of the times what it takes is a specific life situation to get you to completely surrender and accept the divine orchestration at play. Because, again, we don't understand whatever this is. We don't understand necessarily the intricacies of life. But what we do know is that all that we can do is focus on the here and now and stay as much in the present moment as possible. Even though it seems a lot of the times I don't know if, I'm sure this has happened to many people where like you're lying awake at night and then all these past memories and or maybe like embarrassing situations from your past, they just start plaguing you and you're like, oh my gosh, why did I do that? Why did I say that? Or you're worrying about the future, you know? But I find that there's a certain level of peace and a serenity that you can find in the present moment that is just unmatched. It's so, it's something that I can only describe as like being unifying, because that stillness and that like, it's like I'm not even sure how to describe it. I don't think that there's any way that I can describe it. It's just, it's a feeling, it's a sensation, it's just a state of being. And once you're immersed in that being, or you can try to be as much as possible, because, at the end of the day, you're still human. Of course, you're going to, have unpleasant thoughts or memories, or just things that are constantly trying to grab your attention. But, I think that was the focal point of meditation to begin with, to free your mind of, to make it become still. Just still. Because the more you are in the present moment, I find, the quieter the thoughts become. And those thoughts, a lot of the times, it's your ego. Because your ego is trying to distract you. It's trying to get you to look at all these different aspects of your life, all these different things, and a lot of the times, worry about things that you can't even control. So, again, what's the point in that? You just end up doing yourself more harm than it does you any good. You just end up hurting yourself more in the process. And there's a time and a place for everything, because it's duality and non-duality. But I think we should try to practice like mindfulness as much as possible, because it really does help. It really does. And it's something that's going to take a lot of persistence, determination, and patience. It's not something you're going to get overnight. But when you do, it just becomes quieter and quieter and quieter until you find yourself completely relinquishing, like, again, as I've said before, I think any and all semblance of control, and just being. But we're all on a journey. This is all a process, and we're all going to get there eventually. So just be patient with yourself and give yourself grace during this time. That's all. You'll get there eventually. It's only a matter of time, I guess, of when. Okay, continuing on here. Focusing on my practice while tuning out any and all unwarranted negativity and attacks directed my way had quite literally become a superpower. I'd gained such a resolute sense of faith and personal power in that time. Confidence and strength. But I had to face my own set of trials and tribulations. Because when you unabashedly shine your light, it tends to attract lower level, almost vampiric energies that want to latch onto you and siphon your energy, essentially sucking you dry and depleting your life force, which is not good at all. So I made it a point to distance myself from those types of people while continually doing self-inquiry and choosing love, compassion, empathy, and kindness for my kin, as these qualities always seem to triumph above all, every time. I'd often find myself asking this simple question: why would I willingly inflict the same pain that I carried with me for so long onto another individual when I, from experience, know the repercussions thereof and just how much irreversible damage it can do to their psyche? Steadily over the years, this helped me gain the most profound insight and wisdom that I needed to pick myself back up again from the ground and carry on. Because if there's one thing I knew for sure, and that I still know for sure, is that I'm never, ever giving up on myself again. And you owe yourself that much to remain steadfast, determined, focused, and patient. Because when nothing can sway you, you become an immovable object, and the picture of resilience, perseverance, and sheer, relentless will. And I like to look at faith like that, as well. You become this mountain of fortitude, a mountain of faith, unwavering and unshakable, resolute and firm. Nothing can shake you because your faith is so strong. Your sense of self is so strong. Your presence is so strong in this moment, and you know intuitively, on a deep, almost primordial level, that you are always taken care of, irrespective of how the situation seems and how it looks like. Because it is only through Source, Divine, the Most High, God, that you can ever shift. It is only through God's grace that you can ever find that sense of peace and tranquility and just eternal bliss, and serenity. But it's not something you're going to get overnight. And as I've said before, it's a lot of the times it manifests, like the way we get there on that path is through life situations. Not a lot of people can just sit and meditate their way to eternal bliss. Sometimes karma has to do its thing, and life has to take over to get you to that point. And however that looks like for you, just trust and know that in whatever way, shape, or form, you will get there somehow, some way. That's inevitable. And, I don't even know if, because everyone's so different. Everyone's paths are so different. Some people might only end up getting it in their next life. But again, it all depends on you and where you are. And, it doesn't matter. Actually, don't focus on it so much, because then it could start to consume you in a way. I'd say rather just live your life and just try practicing this as much as possible. Just always introspect and just tune in and listen to yourself as much as possible. Follow your intuitive guidance. Yes. Just follow your intuitive guidance to the best of your ability. Doesn't matter how it looks, doesn't matter how it seems. And don't compare yourself. I think I've said that before, don't compare yourself. It's very easy to do that. And then that just only causes you to feel even worse than before. At least in my experience, that's what I found to be true. And also, another thing that I wanted to mention, I'm not some kind of guru. And I don't have the answers per se. I don't know everything. But what I do know is my own personal experience on this journey that I'm on. So yeah, that's all I can share from my vantage point. And all that I can say is remain diligent again. Just remain strong and sit with it. Because when the time is right, it will arise. And you can only go up from there on out. So, yeah, I think maybe my top 3, was it 4? Anyway, it's patience, perseverance, determination, and faith. So it's 4 of them. Just always focus on that. It's going to take a lot of discipline though. But it's worth it in the end, if you're willing to put in the work, that is. And okay, so I hope that this recount of my experience helped shed some light on yours. And thank you, really, for all the lovely comments as well. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. You really brightened my day. I don't actually think you realize how much, it legitimately put a smile on my face. And yeah, I just urge you to always keep your head held high and to know that you will triumph above any obstacle, any hurdle, and any circumstance that you face. And that all is well and you will be okay.